Alright guys, so I'm going to show you, I just got this deer. I got a doe tag with a muzzleloader. So I'm going to show you some cool techniques for making this easy on yourself, not using any saws, not gutting it, not getting it dirty. So if you look over here, I've got a tarp laid out. In my pack I carry what I call a kill kit, and it's just got some gloves. I got some gloves that can't be cut through, and then some gloves to keep those clean. Got my knife. I'm going to give it a little bit of edge on it. And we're going to get started. We've got a little bit of weather above us, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Alright, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pinch this leg between my knees, and I'm going to come in with the knife, cutting away from myself. And I'm going to skin this back. And I'm going to try to be real careful when I get close to my leg. Cut away from myself for the most part. If I'm cutting towards myself, I slow down. Cut that skin all the way around, and I can grab it and I can just peel it back. And then once you peel it back, you can usually get a hold of this and kind of pull it. Save yourself a little time. And I leave this leg attached so I can hold on to it with my legs. Drop my speed loader. So what I'm trying to do when I'm skinning this back is try to peel the hide away from the meat to try to keep the hair off of it as much as possible. And then I'm going to have my buddy, my cousin Josh here, he's going to come up here and hold this leg up for me. And now I'm going to come through underneath. And I'm going to skin along here, and I'm going to try to be real careful not to even get at all into the gut area and the abdomen. So I just like to, the way I like to do this is about an inch at a time. You can take your fingers and kind of come up in here and spread them apart. That also works. But I try to just do it in small chunks. Try to more or less go down the center line. And then you just kind of keep feeling, and you kind of push around. You can feel where the sternum starts and where there's bones protecting all the inner organs. So once you get to that point, which is about here, then you don't have to go so slow. Now I'm just going to skin out one half of her body. Again, peeling the hide away to keep it off the meat. All right. If you happen to cut a hole like that in the hide, it makes a good handle. but the less holes you cut in the hide, the better, because every time you cut a hole, you expose the meat to hair. What's cool is when you go to cut this thing up and process it, if you don't even have to pick anything off the meat, it's just perfectly clean. So that's kind of our goal, is to be as clean as possible and as quick as possible. This is the exit wound, the opposite side she was facing when I got her. Okay, I've skinned basically from the front leg down, all the way to the center of the back of the animal. So now I'm to the point where what I want to do is cut off this top leg. So when I'm throwing our pack, it's not going to stick out. So what I like to do is look at this joint right here, come up about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then use the back half of your knife right here so you don't dull the skinning part of the front of your knife. Cut all the way around. Cut all those tendons, and then set your knife far away from you, especially if you're doing this in the dark. And then put your leg under it, and then just push. And then there's usually 1 or 2 little tendons to clean up, cut off. And I'll have Josh hold that. I'll make sure I'm ready to cut this off. Looks like we're all the way to the center. So I'm gonna have Josh kind of pull it this way. I'm gonna come down right in the center. And I'm already to the pelvis bone. I can hear it on my knife. And slowly applying pressure. Sometimes you can dick that in there and the little guts will start coming out. Really try not to cut a gut. You can pull that down a little more. As you keep pulling, pretty soon you'll see this little ball joint exposed. It's right there. And once you get through that joint, then I like to just try to run my knife along that pelvis bone. And what happens is we're basically getting 99% of the meat off of this whole hindquarter and the pelvis area, and all those nice roasts and stuff in there, all in one time, and one thing that's easy to throw in a backpack. And it's just kind of a shape like that. You just kind of follow along, right along the edge of the bone, and then you cut out. And we always just put them on that tarp, keep it nice and clean. Alright, so I'm going to move up to this front leg. Again, I'm going to put it between my knees, hold it in place. I'm going to come right on the back side of the leg. I'm going to cut straight down. We're not going to mount this animal, so I'm not being real careful about the cape or anything like that. Pulling skin. Trying to cut as few muscles as possible, leave them all on the animal parts instead of on the skin. I'm going to cut real carefully around my legs, just like on the back leg. And peel that hide off. Around the brisket here, I'm just going to pull this up. Sometimes these muscles are harder to get to not stay on the skin, so you can skin up against the skin. Just try not to cut through so you don't get hair everywhere. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut through the hide. And I'm going to skin up the neck, kind of the bottom of the neck, all the way to the base of the skull. And leave all that meat on the carcass so we can grind all that up, make good hamburger out of it. Jerky meat. And again, you notice I'm just kind of folding that skin always back like this away from the meat. Keep as much hair off of it as possible. Okay, so one half of this animal is already skinned out. So now I'm going to, before I cut the front shoulder off, I'm going to show you how to cut this front leg off so it fits in your backpack better. So you look in where the bend of the joint is, you come right to the middle. And again, you use the back part of your knife so you don't dull the front. Cut all the way around, basically down to the bone, cutting all those tendons. And set your knife down away from you. And then basically put a little arm lock on this. Twist. In a circular motion. Couple twists. And release those twists. And then usually there's just a couple little tendons left to cut. Another cool thing to do, make this easier to handle, is to actually cut a little handle right in there. You're not destroying any meat or anything, just making a place to hold on to. And you pull this back. Now the weird thing about a front shoulder is there's no bones connected. It's all muscle. So you just keep peeling it back, coming back, and then there's the center of the spine. Keep pulling, and there's the front quarter with no dirt, no hair on it. Also in my hunting pack, I like to carry around trash bags, but you want to make sure they're the high quality kind and they are not scented because that will ruin the flavor of your meat. So, nice clean trash bags. You know, they open up and they lay open for you. Makes it pretty easy to throw meat in there. And so what I'm going to do is, before I flip this over and get this whole side dirty, I'm going to quickly just take all this muscle and meat off. This is all going to be eventually ground up and be hamburger. And there's bloodshot around here. I'm going to stay several inches away from that, just in case there's any metal shrapnel from the bullet. And I'm just kind of cutting down next to the ribs. So this method, we're not going to take the guts out of the animal. It's kind of a pointless task when you're trying to just do this nice and clean and quickly like that. Because this meat is going to cool off very fast being off the carcass. And there's a fair amount of hamburger meat up on the neck too. And so the spine runs through there, and there's two ridges of vertebrae that you can feel when you go like that. There's a ridge there and a ridge there. And so you want to just kind of go on the inside of that ridge, cutting down to those bones, cutting down to the center of the neck. You'll know you're at the center when you see this whitish, yellowish, I think it's a tendon probably. And you can grab all of that meat, pull that off, and there's some nice clean hamburger meat. And I'll do it on the other side of that ridge of bones there. Come right to the other side, I'll cut down. Trying to really, you don't really want to get into the esophagus or where there might be food or other digestive things. There's not a ton of meat on these little deer necks, but we like to try to keep as much as possible And the other thing I'll point out is, if you were to take the time and cut all the meat out of all these, in between all the ribs and stuff, that is less than an 1/8 inch thick. So I would guess you'd probably only get a pound or two of meat, and it would take you forever. So typically, you don't worry about that. You can if you want to, but a lot of regulations and stuff, hunting regulations, as long as you get the quarters and the backstraps and the tenderloins out, you're good to go as far as legality. But I definitely like to try to get all the meat I can off of them within reason. Okay, but you can feel there's the gut. It's already starting to swell a little bit. Usually happens after a kill. Nice clean hamburger meat. See, that neck is feeling good. That's down to bone there. There's a little bit of clean meat past this exit wound. So I'm going to come along to the ribs. Sliding down from the ribs. And just kind of graze your knife across those ribs. You can get that thin layer of meat off of there. The most important, the most tasty, my kids love it, is the steak. And so this is called the backstrap. So it's from here to here. It's right along the backbone. And so I like to come in and cut right into the ribs. Right along the ribs anyway. To get those to start being released. And that shot placement was good. We didn't destroy any of that really good meat. So that's a positive. Cutting straight down now, you can see those bones in there. That's the vertebrae, that's the spine that sticks straight up. So that's the center of the animal. So you want to take your knife and go right along that. And I should be able to take this whole section of backstrap out all in one chunk. I like to make sure you lay it back on the animal. You're going to switch and put it on the hair or the ground. Shift your position, I'll come back here. So it's easy to do where the ribs go. The ribs end, you can feel the rib, the last rib is right there. So you just use the ribs as a guide. Now it gets a little trickier because the backbone and vertebrae, they stopped and they're real short right here. I'm also going to take this section of clean hide and I'm going to fold this in so it stays nice and clean while I'm working back here. So you want to just be kind of careful, slow down a little bit here. Cut right up into those bones. Trying not to cut into the gut section. It's no big deal if you do, unless you cut a gut and then you gotta wash that meat really fast. So you can see those bones right there. Now I'm down to the center of the spine. And then that hip bone that's right there, you can feel it. You want to just come to the inside of it and cut right along the edge of it. Straight down to the spine. Again, not getting too deep into the gut section. Alright. So now, I'm just going to go to those up and down vertebrae. I'm going to peel that meat off. Pick it up. And there is your perfectly clean backstrap, ready to slice into steaks. What we like to do is grab a separate trash bag and keep the steaks separate from the grinding meat. So that'll be my steak bag. Carefully. And I'm going to just kind of look everything over. Feels like I'm down to bone pretty much everywhere. There's just maybe a little tiny bit of meat right there. And all of this abdominal muscle you can get if you want. It depends. When they start getting bloated like this, there potentially is some open gut juices and digestive juices in there, which means the inside of that meat is probably contaminated anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and call this side of the animal done, and I'm going to start on the other side. Alright, we're going to come down and take advantage of the position of this leg before we flip it. A little easier to manage. You just put it up on your leg right here. Cut them straight down. Kind of follow the bone. And then most states that I know of you need to show proof of sex or evidence of sex. So for this little doe, we're going to try to save right in here, and you want to make sure that it's attached to, what we like to do is attach it to the hind quarter. So you're going to skin around it. I'll come from above here. If it was a male deer, you'd just be leaving the testicle on there. It's a little easier to do than a doe. So that's still attached, see? So now I can come up on the other side of it, kind of pinch it and pull it. And make sure it's still attached. You got something connecting it to the meat before you go cutting everything off. So you can see, since I went through the hair so much, you start getting a little hair on the meat. So that's why it's important everywhere else to try to pull the hide back and not get hair on it. When you use this method, you don't have to use a saw to cut into there. You don't have to cut out the anus or anything like that. You don't have to contaminate your knife with whatever's in that tract. I'm going to slow down skinning when I get close to my legs. Cut away. So now there's no meat at all past that. It's just all bone and tendon. These back legs have a cool little handle right there once you skin this out. So once you've got it cut all the way around, the skin's off, you can typically grab a hold of it and pull. And get that to peel off fairly quickly. Alright, so from here, I'm going to put my knife over here so it's safely out of the way. I'm going to flip her over. All the meat's already been taken off of that side, so I don't care that that's on the ground now. I'll come back up here and finish skinning out this leg. Josh, help me hold that up if you can. So the rear leg is already skinned out. I'm going to come up with the skin up here. Alright, we're going to come back and I'm going to show you again how to cut this leg off. Again, it's the same. You look for this kind of large part of the joint. Come about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. Use the back part of your knife, cut all the way down and all the way around. And put your knife safely away. Put that over your knee. And give it a good whack. Pull it to where the tendon's loose and just cut that last little bit of tendon. Alright, so now we're going to make sure this stays attached. There's not much connective tissue on a doe here, so I'm just going to look through and make sure there's nothing going to come off when I start cutting down to get the leg off. The pelvis right there. So I'm just going to take my knife right along that edge on a steep angle and keep going and keep peeling, keep pulling back, downward pressure. And there's an artery, and then voila, there's the ball joint. You just kind of naturally come to it. If you start to that bone and work your way in, you'll just come to it. And there's a little protrusion here that you kind of have to work your way around. Sticks up right there. So it's best just to kind of keep going up against the pelvis bone. Get up here, and now it's kind of a half moon shape like that, the bone that you're looking for. So you just kind of keep going till you feel your knife hitting that, and then work it off. And then you can feel this hip bone right up here. You just run your hand across there and you can definitely feel that solid bone. You want to come in and just take your knife right along that. And then peel all the way out. And we're already to the center. And there's another nice clean quarter. Up to the other front leg. Come straight down the back. Try to find yourself a knife that's got some good steel in it so you can put a new edge on it pretty easily. Because a dull knife is more dangerous than a super sharp knife. You start forcing it. Trying to leave all those, as much of the muscle as possible onto the animal and not the hide. I'm going to pinch it and hold it between my knees. past the joint, and then just switch your knife this direction, cut away from yourself. Same thing on the back. Once you get it past the joint, you can just pull that hide. I'm going to fold it back here and finish skinning out the back side. There's where the bullet went in. Right behind the front shoulder, so we didn't really mess up too much meat. We'll see if we got any messed up back strap when we get in there, but skin out the rest of the neck here. So I'm already through. So that's good there. I'm going to go ahead and switch gears back to this leg. I'll cut this leg off again for you. Again, look at that joint right in the middle while it's bent. Cut all the way around. And then just twist. And then untwist it, kind of relieve the tension. Now you can just see those tendons right there. I'm going to cut a little handle there and ask Josh hold on to that while I cut this off so it doesn't hit the dirt. Josh's doing good, he's holding the flashlight and a camera. Alright. Let me pull this back, cutting through the muscle. So when I go to process this, a lot of this bloodshot is not going to be used because there's potentially bone and metal shrapnel and stuff in there. And the meat seems to taste better after process if you get rid of all that stuff when you go to cut it up. Coming back into it, we're going to finish skinning out that neck here, and then you just kind of feel it ends right there. There's really no meat worth anything on the head to worry about. So just come up to the base of the head. You can feel that little protrusion of bone right there. That's how you know you're there. And then kind of got a bloody mess here, so I'm going to start by cutting through all this and see if there's any salvageable meat in here. So all of that would ruin your batch of meat. So this is a treat for the bears and the coyotes. I'll just leave that there. Alright, that meat, it's just a little bloody. It's not technically torn up from the bullet, so I think this will be okay to save some of this. And again, I'm going to feel that ridge. There's a bunch of little bumps right there. You can feel those vertebrae. They come to the inside of one side of that, down to the spine. And there's that centerpiece I was telling you about. So we're halfway centered through. So I got a couple packages of hamburger off of this neck meat when it's all said and done. But there's the vertebrae right there, so most of the meat's already been removed. can see that little neck is maybe 3 inches in diameter. So if you try a neck shot, you're kind of risking it. Tiny little piece of meat right there on the front of the windpipe. So that's looking pretty good for the neck. Alright, let's see if I can clean up any of this bloody mess. Looks like it's probably long because this is kind of all puffed up and kind of foamy. So yeah, it's just bloody. You can see the back straps are still clean under there. It's just got blood on it. So let me switch gears up here. We'll go and get some more hamburger meat off the front. So all this blood just went in between these muscle groups. That meat's still good, it's just bloody. Kind of scraping it off with my knife. I'll probably rinse it off when I go to grind it. This, however, is pretty much completely bloodshot. So I'm going to stay away from that whole area. I'm going to come up here where I stop seeing bloodshot and I cut down. I'm not cutting the gut, I'm cutting into ribs. Alright, so that's kind of my margin where the meat past there is good. Here is just another donation for the bears and coyotes. So when I'm doing this rib meat, my knife is running along the edge of the ribs, so I don't cut into that cavity. You can see it's getting more and more bloated. A little bit of meat up here I can grab. Light up here if I could. I think this is salvageable. That's good. So we respect these animals. We don't want to waste really any meat. Try to get as much off it as you can. I'm going to get these back straps out. That's almost all that's left. I'm just going to reposition it. It's pretty lightweight now because most of the meat's already off. Position that up where I can get to it. So it's got blood on it. I'll wash this before I process it. But you can see when I clean it with my knife, it's still good meat under there. So we got lucky, no shrapnel, no bone or anything hit that really good meat. So I'm going to feel the ribs right along there. I'm going to come right across, running along the ribs. It just guides you right in. And then feel back here and make sure you know where the ribs end. Feel right there, you can feel the rib. That's your last one. Cut up to that one. And it's kind of cool, the vertebrae sticks straight up down the center of the spine, kind of keeps this meat from touching the ground. It's like a little shelf. And getting this, I mean, that's 98% of the meat's coming off all in one piece. I'm going to fold it back there, keep it on the hide so it's not on the ground while I work on the back half. Come in here, you can feel there, you can see that hip bone, you can mostly feel it. It's kind of hard to see, but right there you can definitely feel that ridge. That's where you're coming to. And you're going to try to come along and find those vertebrae. They're only about 3 inches long. They stick out that way. And so you just try to keep your knife going along there. Keep them running along the bones, that way you don't accidentally cut your steaks all chewed up. You can see those bones right there. That's what you want to see. And take it down to the center of the vertebrae before they start pointing upwards. Take it all the way there. And there's kind of like a little, each vertebrae has like a little ball on it. So you want to kind of hit that ball and then come above the ball and cut down to the straight up and down vertebrae. And then I'm going to come feel that hip bone right there. I'm going to take my knife and put it just on the inside of it. Cutting on an angle. So I'm basically just on the other side of this bone surface. All the way in. Alright, so we got this back strap out. GoPro ran out of power, so I'm going to switch to an iPhone to finish this out. This goes in the steak bag. I'm going to look carefully, see if there's much meat at all to get off of here. Not really. And if you do this a few times, you can get it. See, I peeled it all the way to the bone. I mean, there's hardly any meat left at all. There's a little chunk. This will show you that little ridge I was telling you about better. So it's all pretty easy except for this little pointy bone that sticks out right there. So a little bit of cleanup to do right there. Alright, we'll spend a little time with this getting a little bit more off camera. It's kind of boring to watch, but I do want to show you one more thing. The best part of the deer or any wild game is called the tenderloin, and it rests just inside here underneath this these vertebrae bones. And so what you try to do is you're going to try to cut that out without cutting into your guts and stuff like that. Sometimes that happens. If that does, just throw it in a separate bag and wash it really well, but we'll see what happens. So you want to feel those bones right there. You can run your hand across there, you can feel those bones. Put your knife right on the inside of one of those and then keep it running right along that path. So you can see those bones right there. And you can see that tenderloins are starting to poke out. Nice tender piece of meat, really good steaks. See how it's kind of already releasing. It's a good sign. I don't see any gut matter or anything on it. So then you can kind of come in here and it's loosely connected. Once you get it pretty much cut, you can pull this thing out. It's releasing pretty well. Cutting up against the bones to get it to come all the way out. Keep pulling, and you usually have to cut the very top tip of it. And there's your perfectly clean tenderloin. Probably take this on the other side and get a nice little meal out of it. So we'll do the other one off camera. It's going to be the same. We'll just flip it and get that out of there. We'll clean off a little bit more hamburger meat. We got it in our trash bags. Let's take another look over here at our tarp. We got each quarter laying there on a clean tarp. We're going to throw those in trash bags, throw them in our packs, and we'll pack this thing out. And we'll make it in one trip with 2 of us, and then we'll process this after the meat chills out a bit. So thanks for watching. Hope you learned a lot.